Fables of La Fontaine. The Lioness and the She-Bear. A mother lion had lost her young. A hunter had stolen her cub away. And from the dawn, when the gay birds sung, all through the shadeless hours of day, she filled the forest with huge dismay. Nor did the night, with its silent charms, still the voices of this childless mother's alarms. At length a she-bear rose and said, "Do you ever think of the children dead by your paws and jaws so cruelly slain, yet their mothers silent still remain? And why not you?" The beast replied, "My child is lost, perhaps has died, and nothing for me now is left but a life of hope bereft." "And what condemns you to this wretched fate?" "Fate," echoed the beast disconsolate. "From since the time the world a world became, all living things have thought or said the same. You wretched mortals who bewail that over you fate's darkest cloud is thrown, just think of Hecuba's sad tale, and thank the gods that it is not your own." Well, there you have it. What's this all about? Well, a mother lion, a hunter takes away her cub. She fears the worst, that it's dead. So she cries and cries day and night, disturbing all the animals of the forest. A she-bear comes up and says, "Why are you crying so much? You've killed many animals. Most of them had parents. You don't hear those parents cry and howl like this. How come you're doing it?" And basically the she-lion says, this is the worst fate that could befall anybody. And according to La Fontaine, everybody feels that way when tragedy strikes. There's a saying these days that's becoming popular that the worst thing you've experienced is the worst thing you've experienced. A little child drops their ice cream cone and they cry like it's the end of the world, because up until that point, that's the worst tragedy they've ever had to deal with. Sadly, as life continues, more and more tragedy strikes. A child 10 years old drops their ice cream cone. It's not the end of the world, but if that child's parents die, then that's the worst calamity that could happen possibly to that child. And parent loses a child, that's the worst thing that could ever happen. But as La Fontaine says, everybody thinks that the worst thing happened. That's the worst possible thing. And he says basically the thing that I hate, it can always get worse. There's always someone out there who's had a worse tragedy than you. Think of Hecuba. Well, who was Hecuba? Hecuba, I believe, was the wife of the king of Troy. And when Troy fell, her husband was killed, his fortune was looted, her son was blinded and then killed, and then she, penniless, was taken into slavery by one of the victors at the battle for Troy. And she was so brokenhearted at the loss of her fortune and her husband and her son that when she got the opportunity, she jumped off a cliff and committed suicide. So basically, La Fontaine is saying, you think you got it bad, at least you don't have it as bad as Hecuba had it. But right now, in the past few years, I've experienced a considerable amount of tragedy myself, and it's really soul destroying. Everything seems completely hopeless. I've lost so much, and now my daughter has been taken away from me. And I have roughly 20 days or so till the next court date. I have a lot to do in the meantime to try to solve this issue. I don't know if it's going to be possible. If I can't get this done by the 24th of June, unfortunately, family court shuts down in the summer. Judges take vacations, lawyers take vacations in the summer, and it's probably going to be pushed ahead a couple of months. And the thought of that, I've been away from my daughter for so long, the thought of that being pushed ahead for a few more months is just devastating, and I'm sure it's devastating to her as well. It's just unbearable to think about. So I'm going to do everything in my power between then and now to try to prevent that from happening, and hopefully by the end of June things will be pretty well back to normal. I can only hope. It seems that I'm hoping beyond hope. It seems quite hopeless, to be honest, but I'll do what I can. And in the meantime, all I can do is try to bear this terrible circumstance and hope that my daughter can bear this as well, because I'm sure she's feeling the pain as well. It's tragic, it's terrible, and anyway. But as La Fontaine says, I guess other people have it more difficult, and people in the past have had it more difficult. And although logically that may be true, it's really cold comfort. There's no comfort in that. It's like the saying, a landslide in China kills 30,000 people, but if you hit your thumb with a hammer, you don't care about those 30,000 people. You're dealing with your throbbing, swollen, possibly broken thumb, and everybody else's tragedy. It's very hard to commiserate with them or to empathize with them. And I know several people who are going through difficult times right now as well. That might be the most difficult thing those people have dealt with up to this point, so it seems like a terrible tragedy. To me, their situation seems much easier to deal with than what I'm dealing with. I've dealt with a lot of the things those people are dealing with in the past, and yes, when I was dealing with that, and when that was the toughest thing I had to deal with, it seemed quite terrible. But for good or for bad, I've dealt with so much since then that seems quite trivial now. So the capacity to deal with calamity and trouble and problems and difficulties seems to grow the more you have dealt with in the past. It's like, I feel like Job in the Bible. Whatever could possibly go wrong seems to go wrong, and I just dare and try to hope and try to endure, and hopefully it will pass and things will normalize. And for whatever you're dealing with in life, basically, I hope you can hang in there and deal with it. The she-lion says, all I have now is a hopeless situation. Things will never be better. I'll never be happy again, and that's how I feel as long as this is going to endure and carry on. It's just absolutely terrible, shockingly terrible. But anyway, I have a very small support network, a couple of friends basically. Hopefully you have a better support network, and basically just hang in there and try to carry on as best as you can. If you have anything you'd like to add or comment on down below, please. Until next time, goodbye. Love you.